Alrighty, Donny's back again. We're going to tear down a 395 that needs a new crankcase. New crankcase is right here, and we'll talk a bit about the 394 and the 395. Both great saws. Been used in the big wood here in BC since the first 394 came out, and I think the 394s were pretty durable. One of the better models ever used here in the woods, besides the old 2100 before that, and 288s were around. You know, some guys will still use them. They like the big power. This fella George, a friend of mine, he uses them. He's got I think 4 or 5 of them, so I'm going to help him. I'm going to do the crankcase for him so he can get this saw back into action. So this crankcase has already had some inserts put into the crankcase here, but they've broken away because the crankcase is cracked and it's been smashed here once. It looks like it was welded once too for the bottom dog bolt. The dog bolts on 395s and 394s were brutal. They should have made them a little different. They should have maybe been 6mm bolts and maybe 3 of them instead of 2. I don't know, that's just my opinion, but this model will be scrapped soon. They have been making them in Brazil for a few years, and I believe my brother's got a couple left in stock, but that's it. I don't know if they're going to send any more to Canada or to the US. So just keep your eyes open and ask your dealers. So anyways, yeah, handlebars are off it, the only thing. I think he took them because he bent another pair. So we'll start off by taking the clutch off, and just remember the clutches. Well, obviously I'm taking the filter off though, eh? Start off by taking the filter off, Donny. Okay. Clutch off, and remember, righty-loosey and lefty-tighty on these. Almost all Husqvarna clutches, or almost all clutches on saws, are left-hand thread. So I use an impact, a 1/2 inch impact. On the last video of the John thread I just did, I didn't talk about actually spinning the clutch off. So just on those as well, when I was using that tool earlier on the 2165, is yeah, righty loosey, lefty tighty. On those you don't need to go hammer them on tight, but these you do, and you need to run the bar and chain on them after you put them on. The reason is as you're revving it without the bar and chain on, this clutch could fly off, and I've lost tons of clutches off 394s, 288s, 2100s. They go zinging off down my ravine where we used to have the old shop. I wouldn't even bother going to get them. So there's probably, went down there with a metal detector, there'd be quite a few clutches down there. Anyways, we're going to get that off. And yeah, I'm going to take the starter off with the integrated, how do you say that word? The built-in keyway, how's that? On the flywheel. If you do it with the impact, sometimes the starter will grab like this, and it can strip the keyway. So have your starter off first before you take the clutch off on these saws. So I'm just going to get a Phillips here. They use an old Phillips screw head, which actually worked quite fine. Same as the 394. So you know the difference is, people ask all the time, difference between the 394 and 395. Well, same displacement. It's just a quad port transfer versus a single big side ones on like 394s. It's got a rubber boot carburetor and a different carburetor. They went to a Tillotson, then they went back to Walbro. The first Tillotsons that they used on these saws were terrible. We had quite a few issues with idling problems and restart problems. So the engineers came from Sweden, my friend Magnus. We messed around with the carburetors and come to the conclusion that what he called the piss valve hole, which was just some sort of an emission hole around the low-speed jet and idle circuit. There was a little valve in there that was screwing up. So they reconfigured the carburetor and made it better later on for sure. They not all did it, but a lot of them did it. Okay, starter's off. Might as well just take the top cover off while we're at it. Got the same screws in here. Phillips heads fit on these as well. So might as well just take them all off while I got the screwdriver in my hand. This one has a Walbro, and they went to the Walbro carburetor. The WJ carbs are good. Walbro makes good carburetors. I think they're the best. Besides the old Tillison's HSs were awesome too, right? Very, very reliable. Okay, might as well pull our air conductor off at the same time. You know, and I'm looking at stuff while I'm taking it apart, you know. This is in good shape. The switch wire seemed to be good, and these saws are notorious for having bad switch wires and bad switches. So where it connects to the coil, give it a little pull, make sure it's not spongy, it's not broken inside. That one's fine. Check it on the other end where it plugs onto the switch. Take it off, check that one. Yeah, that one's broke, hey? See? He would have had a switch wire problem. He's always going through switch wires and switches on these. They're just a terrible design. They just fail, okay? Okay, back to getting the clutch off. Now we're ready to pull it off. The spark plug's still in. If you don't take the clutch off first, a lot of people, you know, take the cylinder off, then you got to try to hold the crank somehow to get it off. And you can either do the method I did on the last video on the John thread, where I put this file handle down into the crankcase, which is plastic, to stop the crank from turning, and then get it off. Or if you don't have an impact like this to do it easily, you'd be using the rope method down the spark plug hole to stop the piston from turning over as a piston stop, or a proper piston stop with a nylon end is the best. And that way you can stop that piston from turning. But you can crack the piston, no doubt about it. Get her off. Okay. No problem with that. Little 3/8 ones are very hard to get off of the 3/8 drive. Or a battery one, definitely hard. They don't have enough torque. Okay? So there we go. Clutch is off. Not off yet, but I'm spinning it off. And again, I'm just going to look at stuff while I take it apart. You know, it's got some wear to it. It's not bad though. Clutches are pretty bulletproof on these. You blow the odd spring. These got pretty beefy springs in them, sort of like the 3120. Let's check out our sprocket. It's in pretty good shape. It's not worn down to the lines. Is he running 404? No, 3/8. Okay. Bearing looks good. Oiler looks good. Here's the oiler gear and the washer behind it. Remember, when you take things apart, really watch stuff like this. You know, if you wonder when you put it back together, where'd that washer go? It goes underneath the oiler gear to keep it spaced off the lip of the crank, so it runs truly to the oiler gear to match it up properly. Okay, I have emptied the chain oil out of this, and most of it's leaked out on my other bench from where it was sitting before. Always a pool. Huskies are terrible for leaking oil. Okay, next, let's get our muffler off, and then we're going to get the gas tank off. Muffler, I only take the 2 bottom bolts off. You don't need to take the top bracket ones off. You're taking the whole muffler off. He's been running my Walkerized saws for many years. George is, I don't know how long he's been falling for, maybe 10 years, 15 years maybe? Not sure. Have to ask him. Top nuts are missing, maybe I robbed him for his other saw. Pull it off. He used to like to run the saws that had the pipes, but he has to run the square type ones now with the screens just for forest regulation, and some companies don't like you having the pipes, even though they work great. But that one's been modified with bigger opening screens with the 288 type side ports, or similar to Gordy's WSCS caps you can buy and put on, but that's the way I do them. Braze them on. Way you go, man. Works fine. Doing them for over 40 years. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, gonna bracket off. Gasket's still in good shape. Some of the original 394 didn't even have a gasket, or the 395, they just break apart anyways. It's more for emissions. Okay, so muffler's off. Let's take our tank off. Again, let's take and clean our screw heads out, so you're not stripping screws. There's 1, 2, 3 main screws on this. Take it apart, and then you got to undo the throttle off the carburetor and the fuel line off the carburetor. and the tank will just pull right out. Gotta do remember there is some limiter screws on these as well. There's one back here on the side, and I said that in a different videos. These limiter screws are in here. They're not threaded all the way down, and they're there so you don't pull the saw too far and break the mounts, but guys still do. Okay, take that out. Again, I'm done doing things by hand, but I'm going to use my impact now to run them all the way out. Okay, while I'm at it, I'll take the 2 carb bolts off the back of the carb anchor, just because I got the tool in my hand, and those you don't need to crack by hand first. Okay. Now let's get our bolts off. I just undone my throttle off the carburetor. Probably fuel in this thing, so let's see. Don't think I emptied it out of it. There's the line off. A little bit of gas spraying. Okay. I put that limiter screw in the gas line. It works perfect as a plug for the gas line when you're taking it off. Where'd that wrench go? Huh. Did it fall down? Yeah, it did. Oh, way over there. God darn it. Dropsy Donny. Okay, let's get our other screw in the bottom of the tank for the front mount off. This one's got a large flat washer on it versus the ones in the back. Just regular screws. Okay, gas is coming out because my screw fell out. Oh, let's get our line. Throttle line got hooked up here a little bit. Always something when you're live, eh? Come on, over there. There you go. Okay, there's the tank off. There's your throttle line. We'll inspect that when we put it back together. Yes, it's got a bit of a cut in it. It's already started to wear through. We'll put a throttle cable in it. Look at our fuel line over. Check our mounts. Vent looks okay. It's got one of the white aspirin kind of pills in. I put in them after the other ones fall out on all Huskies. Terrible kind of tank vents they have. Okay, set that aside. Now, let's take our coil off. They all have a black unlimited coil. Yeah, you can do timing events on these too. It helps them for sure. I have done lots of them. But these little screws are 4mm, and use a 3mm Allen wrench to take them off. And should put Loctite on them when you put it back on, because I see these come loose and the coil rubs up against the flywheel and damages it. Some 394s and 395s have had coil issues. Not a lot, but just once in a while they're hard to start or won't restart, then they'll work again. So yeah, there's aftermarket ones out there that are cheap, but stick with the OEM ones, they work good. And check your, the switch wire stuff. That's a lot of times it's contributing to no spark. Like I told you earlier, the switches on these things are terrible, and the wires. Okay. Might as well take the flywheel off over here. Again, 13mm like the 372 was. And this has got the built-in keyway onto the nut off, washer. And again, just hold it up by hand on the one side and tap on the other. And it'll come right off. Usually. Turn it around. Let's try the other side. There we go. Oh, oh. There we go. One good one, eh? This one used to be a heated saw. It's got the generator or the alternator magnet type flywheel on it for heated, but it's no generator on it. So someone's either changed that or eliminated it from the saw. Probably went wrong. There is another screw here where the air injection tube is. Air injection tube for air into the carburetor and keeping your filter clean. It's a Phillips screwdriver. It's kind of odd how they use a few different ones like that, eh? Just a little short Phillips screw, 5mm that holds that in there. Okay. Blunt, set that aside. Now let's go over here. Let's take our mount off the front. It's bolted up to the top of the case here. And then we're going to take the cylinder, carburetor, and air filter adapter off at the same time. You can do that on these saws, where other saws, some you can too, but this one particularly, that's the way I like to do it. Put it all back together that way too. Okay, so now we need to go to find an Allen wrench, because on 394s, 395s, 2100s, old Series 200 saws, they used a 3/16 or quarter inch bolts, and you need a 3/16 T-wrench to fit in there. Hammer it down a bit because there's dirt in it. Oh, we're gonna need a ratchet. So we got a 3/16 long socket here too for these models. Put that in there. Get a little more leverage with our impact here. There we go. Next corner. Again, tap it down. Okay. This one's already been ported and been out running quite a bit. So again, I don't know how old it is, but it's a few years old. There's no, oh, there is a serial number tag on it. I'll tell you exactly how old it is in a second. Doesn't mean it's been working that long though. Could have been bought a year or 2 years after it was built, right? You never know. You can't just go by a serial number thinking that it's ran that long. Okay, those are all out. Now we're going to wind them out with impact. Battery's getting low. Snap-on batteries are awesome on these. They last forever. Not forever, but you know what I mean. Way better than the first electric ones I ever ran, battery powered stuff, man. The batteries were only good for, you know, a day and you're recharging it again. Okay, so here we go. Cylinder bolts are off. Get rid of the top. Probably glued down maybe instead of using a gasket. So there we go. It all comes off at once. Nice little setup. Yes, it was glued down. Nice porting job. Someone did. Maybe me. Definitely was me. Okay, there's a little line on the intake. Who knows what that's from? Some sort of injection. No scoring at all. This thing's in perfect shape. It's actually hasn't seen a lot of time. Crank looks good. Okay, so let's get our piston off. And I need a little bag for that. I like to put the circlips and wrist pin and top bearing into a little bag so you don't get it lost in all your nuts and bolts in the box here. Where are they all at? Just had some lunch with Shelly. It's I didn't realize it's Friday the 13th on TGIF. Friday the 13th tonight. Yeah. And not like yesterday that was beautiful sunny here. I was in a t-shirt here. Now I'm wearing a sweater, doors closed. It's peeing down rain outside. Kind of a bummer. So yeah, I ain't going camping this weekend. I'm gonna stay at work and try to get caught up a little bit. Okay, we're gonna use that circlip in that side. Now I'm gonna take it out and show you how to use that tool. Actually, it's not that big of a deal, but okay, circlip out into the bag. Take my pin tool, put it in the piston. Do it from the clutch side because of that webbing. And just tap it over. Away it comes. Should move nice and freely. There's our wrist pin, our top bearing, and our circlips in this bag. Let's put the cylinder bolts in there too, just so we keep it all together. Sometimes there's a bunch of gunk in the cylinder pins. You gotta get these bolts out of there. And the junk. There's 2, 3, 2, 3. Should be 4. Where's number 4? Stuck up there. There it is. There it is. Stuck in that chunk there. Ah. So yeah, I'll just clean this up. Check his carburetor over. It looks like it was missing the choke lever. So I'll check that choke lever bolt, which is I've showed you guys before on these carburetors. This little bolt comes loose, and this little plate here for the choke lever gets stripped, eh? So then your choke doesn't run right. Work right, I should say. Okay. 3, 4 bolts into there. Not going to put them there. They got too much dirt on them. Okay, back in there. Clean up the piston and the cylinder later, and do the carburetor after we do the crankcase change. Okay. Let me just clean a little bit of this stuff off here. So everyone doing this weekend? Running some saws, do a little fishing. Hunting season started here, so guys are out hunting, bear and deer openings. Okay, let's get our back cover off here for the air filter base, or carb base. Just with our 4mm driver. All these 2 front screws are the same size. This one grounds the switch wire. And that's another thing to check on your switch wire. Excuse me. Check that wire too. If your switch isn't working, make sure it's not spongy. That one's good. It's okay. Throw that in the box. Just get a drink of water. All right. What's left here? Let's take our oiler off. Holy dude. Frog up my throat. Okay, clean the bowl holes out. And these are 4mm screws. So you want to use the 3mm driver. Same one we used on the coil. Tap it in. Screw it. This size I don't have a Allen driver for my ratchet, but it's only a couple bolts, no big deal, right? I think I made one once, but I don't know, it broke or something. I think I cut one of these off and welded it onto like a 1/4-inch socket. These 3 screws are the same length, so it shouldn't get them mixed up with anything. Or hopefully shouldn't get it mixed up with anything.
Your message to Reese says, mixed up with hopefully shouldn't get mixed up with anything.
Why is Siri talking to me? Weird.
Okay, I found this on the web for why Siri talking to me. Check it out.
That's my other phone. Weird. Let's shut it off. It's either someone listening to you all the time, eh? Watching you and listening to you. Either Google on their phones, or you know, the Air Force from the space, maybe with satellites. Okay, 3 screws off the oiler. Pull it off. The seal is built into the case on these, not the oiler, like some old models of Huskies. There's a little seal, like O-ring, flat kind of O-ring on the feed hole on these. So just watch when you take it off, you don't lose it. Either it gets stuck to the crankcase or it's on the oiler. So leave it on that oiler so you don't lose it. Let's pull our oil hose out, our feed line. And again, like the other saw I just did, check your screen here, make sure it's in good shape, doesn't have any holes in it, hasn't fallen off. Okay. A lot of these new 395s were leaking oil from the factory lately. And it's because they're leaking out of the serial number tag right here. They for some reason drilled right through the case into the oil pot to put these rivets in, instead of just drilled it enough to put the rivets in like Husky used to do at the Swedish factory. But this runs from Sweden, not Brazil. So this one probably didn't leak. But if you have a new 395 and it's leaking oil, that's probably where it's coming from. Or they forgot to put the feed hole, the pickup line in properly. You never know. People make mistakes, even factory guys. Okay, so on these ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws for the crankcase as well, just like the 2165 we just did. So let's clean those screw heads out. Get some air, and then we'll take them out. Even myself have missed bolts sometimes when you take them apart. So if it's hard taking apart, stop and recheck that you got them all out. Some people forget this hidden one down here, this one back here. So we're going to crack it first by hand, as usual. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis. Well, the only thing I remember from Spanish in school. Oh, plus I got kicked out of that class once. Teacher pulled me out by his ear. Mr. Walren. I ended up being good friends with him later on in life. A lot of my old teachers from school end up being customers at my dad and mom's shop, or our shop, I should say, and became good friends with a lot of my own doctors, dentists, everything, man. Kind of cool. Okay, 6 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where's the 6? 6, 6. So these 5 here are all the same length, and this one's a little bit different length. On the front, holding the front half together, and the other dog bolt here, or spike bolt, whatever you guys want to call it, connects the top of the crankcase here too. So that's one of the reasons it was leaking oil as well, because this is stripped inside here where the thread is. Had an insert, but it's leaking through there now. I'm going to put these in a bag to keep them separate. Not that I don't know where they're going to go, but why not? Like I said on another video, if you're not sure where stuff's going to go, or you're going to take something apart for a while, put them in bags, mark them, and then you'll know where they go next time when you go to reassemble, and you're not going, God darn it, just need that one bolt, and you don't have one anywhere. When I strip down old saws and blown up ones, I just have boxes of nuts and bolts. So if ever needs something, I don't have them listed in a parts bin, which I wish I could. It just takes so long. I need a kid to do that for me. But I just know, okay, this one fits carburetor, this one fits that. I just grab it and go, eh? Okay, so all 6 are out. We're going to grab the splitter again, which I just used on the 2165. This splitter works on, like I say, almost every Husky saw or other brand saws out there. I'm going to put a rag down because you never get all the oil out of it. And it's going to start with the clutch side. Yeah, this one's been welded up there. It's been banged around. It's had a hard life. Believe me, this customer is a little rough on his saws, but that's okay. It's good for business, I always say. If everyone is perfect with them, with saws, we mechanics, we out of business, right? Okay, come on. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. That point in the end of the crank there. All right, turning it in. Don't want to break free right away. Give it a little tap on the end of this tool. Okay. Turn some more. Some more. Yep, it's hard. We got all the bolts. Yeah, we do. There we go. Okay, come on. Come on, you beast. Sometimes I'll loosen it off and tighten it again. Just kind of move that around a little bit. There we go. This one's hard. There we go. Okay. Oh, I'm out of shape, eh? Look at that. A little sweat on the forehead there. Brutal. I might have to take a break, eh? Okay, let's get this side off. There we go. There's our PTO side. Yeah, you can see where it's welded there. A little bit of gasket floating around there that could block up your oil line. You wouldn't have oil. Bearing's still in good shape, but the new case has new bearings in it. You do have to take this vent line out of this case and install the new one. And I'll show you when we go assemble the new one with the crank of how you position it right so it doesn't leak oil, okay? So let's just set that half aside. I'm actually cooking some crankcases right now, my ultrasonic cleaner, but I just shut it off because of the noise. I want to see how they come out after I do that. So the 2165 one, the previous video I did, that's what's in the cleaner right now. Okay, like I said, there's always still oil in them, so just be prepared, have a rag. Take your dowels out of that side of the case. Let's put them in the bag with the crankcase bolts. New one will have new ones, but I'll keep those ones and throw them in my trickle trunk drawer. You know, everyone's got a drawer in their toolbox or a drawer in their shop. You just put weird things like that because you never know when you need another one and you don't have one. Okay, so now let's get the crank out of the flywheel side. We're just doing the opposite what we did on the other side. This has got the 3 bolts here for the generator, so if you ever actually wanted to add heat to it, you could. Whereas some models, you can't do that with. Okay, let's get this sucker in between. This thing's a little bent. I gotta straighten it up. There we go. Somehow it got a little bent. I don't know how. Someone else using it. I don't wreck my tools normally. Okay, get it going. This one's tight too, but that's good. You obviously don't use this to put it together. I'm going to show you how to put it together in my press, my arbor press, which is the handiest tool for rebuilding saws. You can rebuild almost any model, putting bearings in crankcases, bearings, yeah, you know, just pushing the whole crank and bearing into the crankcases. So handy. I've made up jigs, you know, if I don't have the proper Husky tools or steel tools, I just make up a jig and make it work, right? So there we go. There's both sides off. Now I'll take a couple of the rubbers off and little mounts, and then we'll put it onto the new case and assemble the new case and the top end and go run it and get it back up onto the hill to produce some more lumber for the world and toothpicks and whatever people are using the wood for. So there you go. Here's the 394, 395 type bottom end split apart. And the next video on this one, I'll do the installation. I'm not going to spend time and make you watch me clean it and everything. That's the biggest part of all these used ones like this, is cleaning them. God, they get dirty. So a lot of times I have a pressure washer set up outside there. I just bought a new one a little while ago, an electric one, and it's always ready to go. So I put these in like a crate, milk crate I call them, and just clean them off. And then wash them in the parts cleaner tank, blow them off, and they're good to go. They don't have to be perfect. It's not a show saw, right? These things are going to go get dirty and get broken again. So there you go. That's how you take that thing apart. They don't take long. It's just assembling and cleaning that takes the most time. Really cleaning the most, really. Yeah. Anyways, happy Friday 13th, everyone. TGF. Have a great weekend. Keep your saw on the wood sticking nice, rubbing around. Get out with your family and friends and have a good time this weekend. We'll catch you later. That's probably it for today. I gotta go change the light bulb at the daycare or something, so I gotta get a check. I'm just kidding. Hey, have a good day. Bye. Parting.